Okay, so the next slide will be completely black. Don't worry, it's supposed to be. It's not an IT failure. And I would like to invite you, if you're comfortable doing so, to close your eyes while I tell you a story. So, once upon a time, there was a woman. She was a software engineer. She had a background in maths, so she had a maths degree, which means that she was used to being in a minority. So when she was studying maths at university, she was one of about maybe 5% female students. And she therefore kind of thought women can't do maths. And this was reinforced by her experience. And then she became a software engineer quite late, and then was in a minority again. So women can't really do software either, right? And in her first job, she felt really quite intimidated because she'd actually gone back to university and done a conversion course in computation, and before that time had barely ever even used a computer, but she felt like she was surrounded by men who'd been doing it since they were babies. They taught themselves to code when they were teenagers, and they all seemed to know so much more than her. It was intimidating. And in her second job, she was more experienced, but she kept being told she couldn't do the interesting stuff. She kept asking, can I work on that back-end stuff? Can I work on that engine? That looks really interesting. No, you can't do that. And eventually, she went for an interview. After a few years in the industry, she went for an interview for a more senior position, didn't get the job, faced incredulity. No, you couldn't possibly do this job. So when eventually she was made redundant after 12 years, she'd really had enough. She'd always felt inadequate. She'd never felt like she really knew what she was doing, and redundancy was a relief. So she left the industry altogether. She really didn't want to do software anymore. Okay, that's the end of that story for now. You can open your eyes. And just in case you accidentally fell asleep, because it is the end of the day and I've just made you sit with your eyes closed, everybody stand up. Just make sure you're all awake. So, everybody stand up. And now, sit down if you know everything about everything. Nearly had Tim sitting down. Okay. Sit down if you never have to Google anything related to your sphere of expertise. Amazing. Okay. No, okay. Now, I was tempted to ask you to sit down if you've ever laughed at anyone for not knowing stuff. But I'm not going to, because that would be me shaming you, and I'm not here to do that. And I was expecting most of you to still be on your feet at this point. So, sit down if you think you should know more than you do. Sit down if you worry people will find out that you don't know much. Oh, no, it doesn't matter. Oh, no, we still got some people. Sit down if you worry that people will find out that you don't know much about the latest hot topic. And sit down if you've ever considered switching roles or careers because you couldn't keep up. Okay, the amazing people left standing, you can also sit down. And I was expecting most of you to be sitting down by now. But there's no judgment if you were still on your feet. Okay, so that was like the credits. Oh, no, this is like the credits. You know, like when in some soap operas, they do a couple of scenes and then they do the credits. This is the credits now. So I'm Clare Sudbery. I've been a software engineer for 23 years. I am now an independent SAM and technical coach. I help people to develop effective software. And I have particular expertise in techniques such as test-driven development, refactoring, and collaborative working, so pair programming, ensemble working. And I'm available, so do reach out if you think I might be able to help you. So let's imagine a world with no imposter syndrome, where everybody arrives at work excited to learn about new things, and nobody ever worries about not knowing enough. That story I told you at the start, that was me, you might have guessed. That was my career trajectory. That was what happened for the first 12 years of my career. I never really felt like I knew what I was doing, and when I was laid off, I was happy. And I left the industry altogether, and I didn't think I was coming back, but I did, and I'll tell you that story later. I did, and here I am. And altogether now, I've been a software engineer for 23 years. But there was that gap in the middle. So, and why did I leave? Well, because I felt stupid. I was always feeling stupid. I felt inadequate. But these days, as well as technical coaching, I also run training courses, boot camps, workshops, and I'm very aware of how often so many people in this industry feel stupid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through some of the behaviours that I think contribute to this problem. These are all the things that I'm going to run through. I'm going to talk about each of these problems, and for each one, what I'll do is I will describe the problem, then I'll describe the impact that I think it has, and then I'll describe some potential solutions. So the first one is judging people or talking negatively about other people. So I've lost count of the amount of times that I have overheard colleagues who've just come out of an interview, so they've just interviewed a developer, or maybe not even a developer, somebody in this industry, and they say to each other, wow, can you believe I just interviewed this person and they didn't even know what an X was? And you can substitute whatever you like for X. It could be anything. But absolute incredulity and just like, oh my God, why did they even bother interviewing if they didn't know about that? And then the other thing that I've witnessed is very similar. Wow, I've just discovered that our colleague doesn't understand why. I'm shocked. Where Y is the letter Y and is a substitute for anything you would like to substitute in there. And these are conversations about people who aren't present. And we've probably all had those conversations. Like we do, I mean, I see it a lot, where people say, oh my God, this person doesn't even know a thing. And it's okay, right? Because they're not in the room. They don't know you're saying this about them. But it doesn't even matter, because you know that they're saying it. And if you're anything like me, if you have any insecurities, then you're then thinking, well, I must make sure that people don't say that about me. I must make sure that I know all the things that I'm supposed to know, because if I don't, people will be saying things like that about me. And now I'm already paranoid. Now I'm already worried. What if there are things that I don't know enough about? And that's problematic. And that's the impact. The impact is that people overhear these judgments and they internalize it. And this, I think, is definitely one of the contributors to imposter syndrome, where we worry that we don't know enough. We don't know as much as we think people think we do. We don't know as much as we think we're supposed to. And we think sooner or later somebody's going to find out, and then they're going to, then there'll be trouble. And this imposter syndrome, when we all know it's an issue in the industry, where people worry that they're going to be found out for not being as good as they think other people think they are. But if everybody feels like this, if we all think that we're not as good as we're supposed to be, and it's only a matter of time before we get found out, then how on earth is anybody ever building any software? It doesn't make sense that so many of us could feel like this. Clearly, we're not right when we think those things, but we still think it. So the solution to this particular issue is don't do it. Even if they're not in the room. Just because they're not in the room doesn't mean that it doesn't have a negative impact. And as I'll talk about later, it's not about what you know. So the thing about this industry is it is enormous. The number of tools and technologies and languages and frameworks and processes, it's enormous, and it's growing exponentially. So there will always be things that people don't know. And those things might be things that you've known for years and years and years. So what? Other people don't know it. And it doesn't matter, because they can learn it. That's the important thing. So please, try not to do that. OK, the next one is talking in jargon. Now, We all do it. I do it. And we use shortcuts. And we don't want to have to explain every tiny thing every time we say it. So we will use shorthand. But it can easily explode. So I'm going to describe to you a scenario. It's entirely fictional, but it might ring some bells. So imagine that I'm late to a meeting. And I rush in. And I say, oh, hi, I'm sorry I'm late. And they say, it's fine. We were just talking about the ARM processor. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. The ARM processor, I've heard of it before, but I can't remember what it is. I'm like, sorry, I'd forgotten. What does ARM stand for? Articulated retention matriculation. Like, oh, right, okay. No idea what that means. Oh, God. And meanwhile, they're saying some more stuff, which I'm not paying attention to, that I haven't heard, because I'm too busy worrying about ARM. Then finally one of them says, although actually, we should be really considering the AMRM at this point. And I'm like, AMRM? What does AMRM stand for? Articulated meta-retention matriculation. Like, oh. And meanwhile, somebody else says, oh, that's a very good point. We definitely want to get meta at this point. And I'm like, oh, God. Now, I mean, I was only just following this, but now they've lost me. Meta. What does meta mean in this context? What does meta mean in any context? It's one of those concepts that I can never remember what it means. Meanwhile, the other person who's just said, yes, definitely want to get meta at this point, they're thinking, I don't really know what I just said, but people seem to agree. And I said juncture. Oh, actually, maybe I didn't say juncture. They were supposed to say juncture, and they did say juncture, and they're pleased about it because they love saying juncture. Now, the thing is that we all get excited about, I've done it, I've definitely done it, because I've been in the out group. I've been in the situation where I didn't understand what people are saying, particularly when you join a new team, when you're learning a new domain, when you're learning a new technology. You're not sure of the terminology at first, and then you start to get it, and then you leap in. You're saying more of it than anybody else because you're so excited that you finally know what the words mean, and now the new person is your victim, because they don't understand what you're saying, and you're so excited about being in the group and being in the in crowd that you're not thinking about the fact that other people might not know what you mean. Now, I'm not saying that we all have to explain every single term that we say, but it does no harm to check. And the impact of people just constantly using the jargon is that not only will colleagues struggle to understand you, they won't say. They'll pretend that they do understand you. So you'll think that you're communicating with them, and actually you're not. And then you get this weird vicious cycle, as I said. Everybody obfuscates to protect themselves from other people thinking that they don't know what they're talking about. So nobody understands what's being talked about, but nobody wants to admit to it, and the fear causes them to use even more jargon, and you just get this horrible vicious cycle. So the solution is simple. If you think there's any question of people knowing what you're talking about, first of all, check. And it does no harm to explain your terms, especially in written communication. So my rule is always, particularly if I'm using abbreviations or initialisms, the first time I use them, I'll explain them, and then I'll leave it. But I do that in person, I do that in written communications. Maybe that means I over-communicate, but it's better to be sure that people understand. And I will try to check as well. And I'll talk later about also creating an environment where people feel okay to ask. So another problem is that people don't want to train juniors. So they'll say, you know, you might have juniors entering your company or organization, and you don't want them on your team because you don't have time to help them, because it's time consuming and you're busy. And you can't spend your whole time teaching new people. But the impact is that we don't have enough people who know what they're doing. We don't have enough people who know about the tools. We struggle to find the people who know the things that they need to know because nobody's willing to teach them. And the other impact is fear. Because, again, if you're saying we don't have time to train juniors, then people around you are hearing you don't have time to train me either. That I shouldn't be asking questions. I shouldn't be asking for help because nobody's going to have the time to help me. It also means that, you know, other juniors in your organisation are going to be aware. These conversations often happen in public. People find out and then they think, oh dear, well, I don't really want to be on that team because if I do, I'll be a burden. They've already said that. So then people are scared. They're scared to ask for help. They're scared to ask for training. The solution: don't hoard knowledge. Consciously try and teach people. Teach each other constantly, but also deliberately ask for juniors. Now, I know that that feels like a burden because I've been there. I know that you think you don't have time. But the thing is that teams benefit from having juniors on them. Everybody benefits because as soon as you have to explain what you're talking about and explain what you're doing, you understand it better yourself. And chances are there'll be other people on the team who are actually in the same position as the juniors but aren't saying so because they don't want anybody to know that there's stuff they don't know. So it deepens everybody's understanding and it makes you much more deliberate and conscious about what you're doing if you have to explain it to somebody else. Juniors can really be a lifeblood for teams. Also, I say junior and you probably hear young, but I didn't say young, I said junior. And even young people know things you don't. Young people have experience that you don't have. They have interesting things to contribute. But also, a lot of juniors are not young, so they have even more experience and knowledge that they can contribute. It just might not be the same as yours, which is a good thing, because that means you get to learn something too. So the solution is have juniors on your teams. And also have explicit policies towards curiosity. So you might have come across the Lucky 10,000. We've already had an XKCD comic today. I don't know the stats. I was intrigued to know. I think somebody said that one that was shown before was the 4th or 5th most popular. No idea where this stands in the XKCD charts. But I really love this, and I'm gonna help you through it because that's a lot of words, and I normally don't like to put a lot of words on slides because now you're all reading the words and not listening to me. So I'm going to talk you through it. He has done some spurious maths. He's saying he tries not to make fun of people when they admit they don't know things. And now here comes the spurious maths. He calculates that based on the US birth rate and on assumption that everybody will have heard of it by the time they're 30, therefore, there are 10,000 people a day learning about a thing for the first time. Now, obviously, those numbers are made up, but it gives you some idea. And the example that he uses is the Diet Coke and Mentos thing. And if you don't know about the Diet Coke and Mentos thing, you are one of today's lucky 10,000. I'm not going to demonstrate it because it makes a mess. But if you put a Mento in a bottle of Diet Coke, stand well back, it makes a fountain. And there are two, if somebody says to you, the what now? There are two ways you can respond to that. You can go, oh, God, do you not know about the Diet Coke and Mentos thing? And now they feel stupid and silly for not knowing about a random thing that, you know, they had to learn it one day, and today just happens to be the day. People aren't born knowing about the Diet Coke and Mentos thing. Somebody has to teach it to you at some point. Today is the day that this person is learning about it. They are one of today's lucky 10,000. But you are also one of today's lucky 10,000 because you get to show them the Diet Coke and Mentos thing, which is really cool. And so if you have that attitude when people don't know things, instead of going, oh, God, you can go, yay, great, you get to learn it and I get to teach you it. We both get something. Because everybody has to learn everything at some point. There is always a before and an after. And if you happen to be present at the point between the before and the after, that's a good thing. That's to be celebrated. So what we want to do is reframe you don't know into you have the opportunity to learn. So the next problem I'm going to talk about is this idea of rock star developers. So this is this idea, and there was a book, it was written ages ago now, but Joel Spolsky, who was like one of the originators, or maybe the originator of Stack Overflow, wrote a book on recruitment. And he talked about deliberately trying to hire rock star developers. And I've heard that before. I've worked for companies where they've been excited about the idea of rock star developers. They've been trying to work out who are they? Who are our developers that are the rock star developers? Everybody wants to be one. Everybody wants to have one on their team. No, it's a really bad thing. So, because the problem is that what it does is it gives us this idea that some developers are elevated. Some of them are like geniuses and they're amazing and they have these super skills. And that is not attainable for most people. So first of all, you create a two-tier system where most people aren't rockstar developers and they feel stupid because they're not. But also, the people who aren't allowed to admit when they're human because they're supposed to be rock stars. So they can't tell you when they don't know stuff. So when they don't know stuff, they just have to make it up. And that doesn't help anybody. Also, they become the blocker for lots of things because they're the only person that can do loads of things. And so that just creates bottlenecks. That's not a good thing. It's simply not positive. And actually, I've become so against this idea that the last time I was looking for a job, when I was looking at the way companies advertise themselves, the ones that said, we've got loads of rockstar devs, we've got all the best people, we filter so that we only get la creme de la creme. If you get to work for us, that means you're amazing. I'm like, nah, I'm out. No, don't want to know, not interested. I want to know that you believe everybody can learn and that you want to help them learn rather than you're just saying we're just going to find these amazing mythical beings and then make you all feel shit because you're not as good as them. No, don't want it. So the impact is a lack of confidence in all the people who aren't rockstar devs, but probably even in the rockstar devs themselves because they're paranoid that they're going to lose it, that they're going to get found out. And this disproportionately affects underrepresented groups as well. If you don't feel like you fit in, if you don't feel like you belong, then you're even less likely to think that you could ever possibly be a rock star, and even more likely to just be permanently worried that you're not clever enough. And people want to fit in, and if they don't feel like they can, then they'll leave, or they just won't join in the first place, and you'll just have a really undiverse workforce. So the solution is to prioritize and value collaboration over heroes and rock stars. They don't help teams, and they increase the bus factor. Bus factor is a horrible term, really, but it's the idea that if your bus factor is how much impact it would have if you got run over by a bus. And actually, you want your bus factor to be low. You want your colleagues to be able to cope without you. Your goal, if you know stuff they don't, is to teach them the stuff that you know, so that if you get run over by a bus, things won't fall apart. Okay, so another problem that we have. Now, this is actually not about making other people feel stupid. This is about making ourselves feel stupid. This is when we assume that everybody else knows more than us. Now, I know it's hard to not do it, but it's worth being aware of it, and it's worth trying not to do it. It's also worth asking other people to help you not to do it. This is one of my favorite series of slides. I use it in more than one talk. There may well be people in the audience who've seen it before. These slides, I took these photos when I was working at ThoughtWorks. It was at a social occasion. At ThoughtWorks, there was an internal kind of bulletin board, message board, that had loads and loads and loads of technical topics that people would contribute to and discuss amongst themselves. When I was working there, there were something like 5,000 or 6,000 developers worldwide, I think. There were certainly thousands of them, and they were worldwide. So there was a lot of people contributing to these boards, and on a whole range of topics. And any day you could go in. The day that I made this slide, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, I just took titles of things that I didn't know anything about. So there you go, 4 years ago, those were all the things I didn't know about. And not all the things, like there were many, many more things I didn't know about. But the temptation is to look at all of those subjects and all of those people and think, look at all of those people who know all of those things. And I don't know any of those things. So I'm looking at all these happy, confident, clever people, and I'm worried. That's me at the bottom. My hair was different. But the thing is, that Andy is also looking at everybody else and thinking all of those people know all of those things and I don't. And so is Anik. And so is Ezra. And so is Georgia. So you may have worked out by now, at this social occasion, I went up to people and asked them to let me take photos of them looking happy and confident and confused and upset. So depending on how good they were at acting, that's how good the results are. But Georgia is also worried. Ileana is worried. John is confused. Kirsty is completely paranoid. Mitcha is upset. Rob is worried. Scott is really quite concerned. And then it comes back to me again. Because everybody's thinking it. Everybody's thinking that all of the people know all of the things, rather than some of the people know some of the things. And I also know some of the things. And it's okay, because everybody has stuff they don't know. And they'll probably be thinking the same thing about me that I'm thinking about them. So the impact is that we all just feel paranoid and worried all the time. The solution is to pay attention to those faces. I mean, to be honest, notice when people don't know things. Not so that you can judge them, but so that you can go, phew, it's not just me. And I actually find that collaborative working techniques, particularly pairing and, as some people call it, mob programming, as I like to call it, ensemble working, is a really good way of being exposed to the fact that other people don't know stuff too. Other people Google stuff all the time, and it's okay, because we're all in that situation. Because after all, the range of knowledge in our industry is very wide. It's very wide. There is no way that you can know everything. There is no end point. I mean, somebody mentioned earlier that, you know, it used to be, I can't remember whether they were on the stage or it was a conversation I was having back there, but there used to be a point where there really wasn't very much to know, and you might actually be able to read most of the textbooks. That was a long time ago. It's never coming back. You will never know everything. You could have two professionals, two highly respected, successful professionals who have almost no crossover in what they know. You could have 10 of them. You could have more than 10 of them. It's just not possible. You're never going to get to the end of the knowledge, so you have to embrace the learning and not expect to ever get to the end. But because we worry, because we're paranoid, because we think people might judge us, because we think we're supposed to know all of the things, we hide our ignorance. Sometimes we will project a sheen of knowledge. Fake it till you make it, right? And in some contexts that does work. But if you pretend to know things you don't, nobody benefits. And the impact is that it not only limits other people, it limits you. Because if you're pretending to know things you don't, it means you can't admit to not knowing things, which means you can't find out about them. You can't ask the colleague who knows exactly what it is that you need to know, because you're pretending you already know it. But also, it means that you're potentially going off and making a right old mess of things because you're just going to have to wing it, rather than just ask the person who knows. The other thing to be aware of is that if we're a team and we're trying to do a thing that requires knowledge, then we all suffer if somebody on the team doesn't know the thing that they need to know. It benefits all of us for people to be given permission to ask questions, to not be judged when they do ask questions. And so all of the other problems that I've talked about contribute to this problem of people not being honest about what they don't know. And we don't end up getting what we need. So the solution is to model vulnerability by deliberately asking questions. And I am eternally grateful to all of the colleagues that I've had that were senior to me and that would happily and confidently admit gross ignorance. They would quite happily say, oh, you know what, no idea what you're talking about. Or, what's that again? Or, that thing you just said I used to know, but I've forgotten. And they're asking questions, but there's a difference between the examples I've just given you and, sorry, I'm very stupid, I know, but what's that thing you just said? The problem is, and it shouldn't be true, but it is, if you ask questions like that, as though you're embarrassed and ashamed and you feel like there's something wrong with it, then people will judge you. There is no such thing as a stupid question. So, and you can help people to that realization, and you can help people to feel confident in asking questions if you ask questions and if you ask them confidently. If you just ask them in a way that you assume that why on earth would you know this thing? Why might it be a problem for you to ask this question? Because you need to know the answer. So what's wrong with asking the question? We all forget things. We all have gaps in our knowledge. We all take different routes through our careers that just happen to mean we haven't encountered whatever this thing happens to be. And honestly, it's been moving to me when I've seen people in senior positions be so honest and be so confident and just relaxed about asking simple questions. It's something that we can all do, and it doesn't just help us, it helps our colleagues. Because you can't work on problems that you're unwilling to admit to. So, the next problem is believing that we should know more than everyone else. So this is when you get somebody who moves into a senior position and thinks, okay, now that I'm a senior developer or a tech lead or a product owner or an agile coach, then I'm supposed to know more than all of the people that I'm working with. And if I don't, then I should pretend that I do. But I should panic about it, and I should be paddling furiously underwater trying to keep up with absolutely everything. And not only does that mean that you will burn out, not only does that mean that you're modeling something unrealistic, so you're encouraging your colleagues to believe that this is something that's attainable when really it isn't. It also means that you don't get to benefit from the skills of the people around you. There is nothing wrong with having people around you who know more than you do. That's a good thing, because it means that you've got a really diverse team who are complementing each other's skills. And if you're in a senior position, you should want the people who are junior to you to know more than you, particularly if you're in a leadership position. So particularly if you're a tech lead, you should want your senior engineers to know more than you. Because even if you want to know as much as they do, you're likely to be more hands-off now. You're not going to be as in touch with every single tiny detail of a code base. You want them to know more than you. This is a good thing. Okay, so what on earth has any of this got to do with agility or architecture? So Diana said this just not long ago at all, this afternoon. The ability to learn together is the most important capability of the systems architect. So agility, architecture, everything to do with software is damaged when we feel stupid, when we feel paranoid about what we know, when we're not able to help each other to learn and to admit when we don't know things. It's like entirely irrelevant to really anything to do with software. So finally we get to the happy ending, which is, as you can see, I'm on this stage. So I did leave the industry. I left for 4 years. I didn't think I was coming back, had no plans to come back, didn't make any attempt to keep up with technology. My skills were already stagnating when I left. But eventually I did come back because I retrained as a high school maths teacher, and it was a complete disaster. And I couldn't persuade teenagers that maths is fun. And the only actual skill that I had that anybody might pay me for was software engineering. So I came back into the industry because I didn't have anything else to do. But I got used to a lower salary. So I deliberately came back in entry level. I got a job with a company that specialized in hiring grads and training them up. And I said, pretend I know nothing. I'm an empty vessel. Fill me with knowledge. And because I had this different attitude, and also because I'd been working in education, so I had a much stronger understanding and appreciation of how important it is to learn and to ask questions. Also, I'd been really jealous of all those pupils. I wanted to be a pupil. I wanted to be learning things. So I had a completely different attitude. I was now like, I'm going to learn all the things. I'm not going to be embarrassed about it. I'm going to ask all the questions. And the revelation was that I think my career accelerated at that point much faster than it ever would have done, not just because I was so eager to learn, but because I was so honest about it. People, far from judging me for asking lots of questions, people respected me. People thought it was great, much in the same way that I was so impressed by my senior colleagues who asked questions. People love it when you ask questions, as long as you answer them, ask them confidently. As long as you say, well, you know, I don't understand that, but I get this bit and this bit, but I just don't quite get how that bit fits into that bit. You know, show that you do have a brain in your head. You don't have to look stupid when you ask questions. And actually, people love it. Okay, so this is, well, I'm about to show you the Stupidity Manifesto. That's a really nice quote from Aaron Swartz, who did work for ThoughtWorks. Sadly, he passed away. But be curious, read widely, try new things. What people call intelligence just boils down to curiosity. So this is the Stupidity Manifesto, which I have shown before. In fact, I've been doing this talk for a few years now, and it's always had the Stupidity Manifesto at the end of it. And that's it. That's as far as it's ever got. But when I did this talk a year ago, somebody in the audience said, can we sign it? And I was like, I mean, I've been meaning to do something with it, but no, not really. But I'll do something about that. And then it went on a to-do list, and then it fell off the bottom of the to-do list, and it never happened. And then I went back to the same event last week, and the same guy said, can we sign the Stupidity Manifesto? I was like, I never got around to it. I promise I'll do it next week. That was last week. And then he messaged me yesterday saying, can I sign the Stupidity Manifesto? I said, oh, all right, all right. So, yes, you can. If you use the QR code, follow the link. I've put the simplest way I could possibly think of doing it. It's just a page on my Medium blog, and I've just said if you add a comment, that's you signing the manifesto. And I thought that was quite clever, because if people troll me, I've already said, if you add a comment, you're signing the manifesto. So this is the Stupidity Manifesto. Let's stop making each other feel stupid. Instead, let's encourage everyone to ask questions. Let's lead by example and be honest when we're confused. Let's value curiosity over knowledge. Let's prioritize clarity over jargon. Let's remember that we all forget stuff. Let's get excited about teaching and learning. Let's acknowledge the broad range of knowledge in our industry and avoid judging someone if their knowledge doesn't match ours. Let's stop making each other feel stupid. Okay, so what can you do to make things even better? Dial up the good is one of Woody Zull's phrases, and I love it. And the most useful talks are those that result in action, if it's only signing and sharing the Stupidity Manifesto. But is there anything that you can commit to that might make a difference? Have a think about it. This is my son, Felix. This is just a joyful image. I love it. He's a circus performer now. He wasn't then. He was only about 15, but he's now 21, and he's a professional circus performer. And he's about to become a dad. I mean, like, if I check my phone, literally, the baby is due, officially due next Wednesday, but I'm going to be a grandma very, very soon. I hosted a podcast. Those are episodes that I think are particularly relevant to this talk. There are 27 episodes. Each episode is me interviewing somebody interesting, like, for instance, I know Corey on retrospectives, and Kevlin, can't see him, but I interviewed Kevlin as well on, I can't remember what, something. Change, balancing change. There may even be other people in the room that I've interviewed. I don't know, but anyway, that's the podcast. I recommend it, obviously. This is a report that I wrote for O'Reilly on trunk-based development. You have to have a platform. You have to be able to get onto the platform, but a lot of people get that for free with their jobs and don't even realize it. This is me and all of the things that I do and all of the ways that you can contact me, and yet another QR code to get all of that. But I mean, I think pretty much all the QR codes will link up eventually. And seriously, I am available. So I'm actively seeking new clients. So if you'd like to work with me, or if you know anyone who might like to work with me, come and talk to me. And this is Oscar, my other son, so we can finish on a high, and I can show off and be a proud mum. And at 7:30, we've got this panel that Tim is thingamy-bobbing, chairing, and I also will be on that panel, and I can't remember the full title, it's long, something about self-organizing teams. And we have like 30 seconds for questions. But also, it's the end of the day, so...
Thank you very much. I do have some questions, and I think we can do some if nobody is too hungry. Yes, I see people nodding. So I started with the first one and the most wanted one, which is, isn't the real problem that remuneration systems or payment schemes in organizations drive competition and knowledge monopolization instead of actively stimulating knowledge sharing?
So I think the question is, isn't the problem that organizations actively encourage competition? So they want us to actively prove that we know more than other people. Yes, that is, it's not, I'm not going to say that's the problem. I think that's maybe letting go of a little responsibility, but it is definitely a big factor. It is an important one. We are encouraged to compete against each other. We're particularly with careers frameworks. You know, you have to prove that you know loads of stuff, and if you're going to progress, then the implication is that if you've got higher up the ladder, then therefore you must know more than those people. But good career progression frameworks aren't centered on knowledge. They're centered on things like collaboration. They're centered on things like mentoring and coaching. Good career frameworks will allow you to progress if you're helping other people, if you can prove that you're sharing your knowledge, because that's what organizations benefit from. Organizations, I mean, it's not just us that don't benefit from feeling like we're stupid. Organizations don't benefit from that. Teams don't function well. Organizations don't function well unless they really do value and impress upon people the importance of teaching and learning. And if you're going to do that, then you have to say that everybody can ask questions and everybody should answer questions. That job that I went to when I came back into the industry after being out for a while, they were very focused on teaching and learning. So they took on graduates, paid them really low salaries, but then trained them up. And when I was interviewed by the MD, who said to me that he would sack people for not asking enough questions, and he would sack people for not answering questions. I am not recommending that. That was one of the more problematic things about his leadership style. But that idea that we really, really care about asking questions and we really, really care about answering them, because you can't have one without the other, that meant that, for instance, so in all of my previous career, there was always things that I wanted to know, and I didn't ask because the people who had the answers were so busy. And I didn't want to interrupt them, and they were really important, and they were needed because they were the only people who knew how to do anything. So there was this horrible, vicious cycle. They were the only people who knew how to do anything, so they were busy 24 hours a day, so they didn't have time to tell anybody else. If you've read the Phoenix Project, that's a big factor in there, this idea that this one guy who is the bottleneck, and he's so busy he can't teach anybody else. And what they did was say, no, we're going to remove things from your plate so that you can share your knowledge. So yes, it's a problem, and if you have any influence over it, help people to stop it.
Okay. Another very interesting question is, could you give examples of helpful arguments for putting juniors in teams, especially if those teams work on the most important projects of the company?
So most important projects are going to have lifespans. And the people working on those most important projects are unlikely to stay forever. They're probably going to leave at some point. And actually, if they're in an environment that doesn't value teaching and learning, they're more likely to leave. So actually, for instance, I used to work at MadeTech. In fact, I ran the academy for MadeTech, and because I do value teaching and learning, it was one of the reasons I went there, because the academy was so great. And this is where they take on inexperienced people and they teach them. And the whole company is involved in that. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to work there. So it actually encourages people to join your organization and discourages people from leaving if you very clearly value teaching and learning. And if you're prepared to take juniors onto teams, then that's really demonstrating that. But it also means that that lifeblood is flowing. So there was a slide earlier, sorry, my memory's terrible, but it was something along the lines of people get complacent when they're successful and they think they no longer need to change because they're already successful. And that is the recipe for disaster. Actually, everybody needs to keep changing. Everybody needs to keep learning. Everybody needs new blood. Juniors keep that blood flowing. They keep things alive, and they mean that that knowledge is being shared because it needs to be shared. You need other people to know about the most important projects because it's short-termism. It won't last. You won't be able to keep things going if you're not constantly feeding the plants. Mixed metaphors, never mind.
Very good, thank you. The next question, I have to admit that I'm not completely sure I understand it, but maybe you do it.
Okay.
How can we best discuss concerns that individuals lack critical knowledge or refuse to learn?
Okay, so I think the question is, how do we best discuss concerns that individuals lack critical knowledge or refuse to learn? So I think the problem there is when you are actually keen for people to learn and you're keen to teach, but individuals are resistant to that. So they don't know what they need to know, and they're also resistant to learning. Now, there does come a point where you do just have to give up, but don't give up straight away, because a lot of the time when people are resistant to learning, it's because they're scared. You see this particularly in people who've been working with a particular technology for a long time, and they're used to being the expert in the room, and they realize that their knowledge is becoming or will become obsolete, and they're really scared about going back to not being the most expert person in the room. And so they're in denial, they're avoiding it, they don't want to learn new things because they think it's such a long time since they learned anything new, and they think they're going to look stupid because everybody worries about looking stupid. So when there are individuals that are resistant, don't give up straight away. Speak to them, get to know them, find out what their concerns are, find out why they don't want to learn, and know that they might not tell you. So a lot of the time people have fears, and those fears are just too scary for them to even say out loud. So it might take time. And if somebody is absolutely refusing to learn, then yes, you might have to question their future with the organization, but don't give up. Don't give up easily. Don't give up quickly. Because it takes time for ideas to land, it takes time for confidence to build, and it takes time for people to learn. And something that I've noticed, particularly as a consultant, is quite often you'll suggest something, and it'll seem like people will stonewall you, they'll disagree with you, and you'll think, oh, okay, oh, never mind. But don't give up. Try again, try again. And what's happening is that ideas are slowly percolating. But if you're constantly talking about the value of teaching and learning, about why it's valuable, rather than just saying, you need to learn this thing, and not explaining why, not explaining the value, not talking about the value, not celebrating teaching and learning throughout every aspect of what you do, then yes, you're more likely to face resistance. You have to be patient with these things sometimes.
So you were very successful encouraging people to asking more questions. They are flying in now, so I'm afraid that we are not really getting to a finish here. So I encourage you asking Claire now at the get-together, and we are going to finish the keynote here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.